All right, we're live, I think. Yeah. Oh, good. Okay, I don't expect to have any live viewers. I took pretty much all of last season off from doing any kind of analysis. I don't know why. I really shouldn't have, but yeah, I don't know. I was putting a lot of effort into the videos and wasn't getting too much back from it, but that's a bad attitude to have. So I wanted to go live to just talk generally about my reflections of last season and what's going to happen. I think at least some of my earlier predictions for next season. It's never too early to have a bit of a crack at some predictions or whatever. All right, so obviously LSU had like the best season ever, arguably the best college football team of all time, and I might be somewhat inclined to agree. Like that's the best offense ever, at least, and the defense certainly. They had no slouches on that defense either. Um, what happened to LSU, I thought was going to happen to Michigan. And I don't know why I didn't pick LSU or have that same kind of confidence in LSU. Sorry, just fixing my bed here on the go. Um, I guess I just didn't really analyze their coaching hires all that well. I knew Michigan was going to the spread. Like Shea Patterson was more highly rated than Joe Burrow, at least coming out of high school. And so I kind of thought like, okay, maybe Michigan's in for a big year, but it happened to LSU, and I should have picked it. I don't know why I didn't. I guess because they came off just such like a mediocre year offensively when there was hype. Like they were okay offensively the year before, but there was so much hype, and just like watching them in that Alabama game where they lost 29-0, it was just like it was horrible to watch. I mean, the offensive line was just dominated, and they had a lot of those guys coming back, and so I kind of thought, the offensive line is going to have to do the job and they're going to have to step up. Otherwise, it might be more of the same. And they improved dramatically. So even if the offensive line was kind of just as bad as they were last year, LSU still would have been pretty good. But it's just they just improved out of sight. And Edwards-Helaire did what was asked of him. The run game was still an important factor in this LSU offense. I think people kind of neglect that. But what did Edwards-Helaire run for? Like 1,400 yards or something? Like that's pretty big. And he came up with some real clutch moments, especially against like Alabama, picking up that first down at the end of the game. And he rushed for their last touchdown, I think. So yeah, I know. I don't know why I didn't see that coming. I mean, no one would have seen it coming to that extent. But like I picked teams like Michigan to maybe do it, and I don't know, they didn't. Um, Speaking of Michigan, that was another team I like to analyze a bit, and I don't know, it's just kind of more of the same, really. Hype, and then don't deliver much. They deliver when it's kind of too late, or like they got blown out by Wisconsin, and then they lose to Penn State, and it's kind of like, oh, whatever. But they beat Notre Dame convincingly, and it's kind of like, well, kind of doesn't count for much, does it? Which is a bit of a shame. But I don't see how next year is going to be any different. I mean, they're losing Patterson, who improved by the end of the year, but I guess wasn't ever that great. His talent was wasted. I mean, that kid was amazing coming out of high school. He was a 5-star. He looked like Manziel, and I don't know, Ole Miss like maybe could have lived up to his potential if he stayed there. They had him running around a bit, but Michigan just wasted it. It was yeah no. If he'd transferred to LSU instead of Burrow, he would be going first overall in the draft right now, I reckon. Um, but what can you do? I think it's going to be more of the same for them, where they got Dylan McCaffrey or Joe Milton starting. I think it'll probably be a bit of a 2 QB system because Dylan McCaffrey just doesn't seem to be able to throw. And like Charbonnet's pretty good, but they're going to need more. I don't know. They lose a few starters on defense, and they've got guys like Daxton Hill probably step up, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I really don't. And yeah, I don't know. I think more of the same for Michigan. Alabama had a bit of a fall from grace. 2 losses to LSU and Auburn, which were basically the only 2 good teams they played. I kind of saw that coming. I knew Auburn would win the Iron Bowl, and I know I can't verify that because I stupidly wasn't using this channel during the season, but I knew Auburn would win. I think Alabama will be. I don't want to write them off, but I think they'll be worse next year. I mean, you can't lose guys like Tua, Jerry Jeudy. I know Najee Harris and that is coming back, but like they haven't. What year didn't they recruit that well? Was it 2018 where they only had like 2 5-stars and then Ayabi Anoma is gone or something? So like I don't know, like they had a couple of years where they weren't that dominant in recruiting. I mean, obviously still very good, but not like they usually were. And yeah, I think that might catch up to them this year. They're going to either start Mac Jones, who's fairly good, but he's like he's AJ McCarron at best, really, right? Like, and then they got Bryce Young, who might be great. He could be the next Tua, but I don't know. I think we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves if we think that he's just going to step in and do as good a job of Tua. And then the receivers, while Smith and I think Waddle are back, I can't imagine that they're going to be just as good without Jeudy. Najee Harris is back. They needed that because if he was gone, I don't know, you're leaving it to Trey Sanders and is it Brian Robinson, number 24? Yeah, I don't think they were going to get the job done. They really needed Harris to come back. On the defensive side, they lose a lot of guys who I think were a bit overrated anyway. Guys like Savon Smith and Xavier McKinney, I don't think are actually that good. Well, I mean, like good, but they're not like Marlon Humphrey or Eddie Jackson or anything like that we've seen in the past. And you see these freaking retarded mock draft sites that are putting guys like Xavier McKinney in the first round, and it's just like he's going to be like Ronnie Harrison, like probably be a 3rd-round pick. I am going live, so I can't fact check this as I go. So if I make some mistakes with like what round a player went in or whatever, forgive me. I mean, those guys are good players, but they were never to that level that I guess people hoped they would have gotten up to. Dylan Moses back, they needed that, and I think he made the right decision coming back because he's a great player. No, he's really good, Dylan Moses. They really need him. He's going to be like the team captain, the kind of anchor of their defense. Guys like LeBron Ray need to step up as well. Otherwise, I think it could be a season where they don't reach expectations. They're always going to win. Like their absolute floor is 9 games, but they got Georgia this year, they got LSU, and they got Auburn. And I think it's a big ask to see them winning all 3 of those games. I'm fairly sure they'll win 1. But even winning 2 of those games is a bit of a stretch. They just aren't as dominant as they used to be. And I'm going to get hate for saying that the dynasty's over. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying I think they've come back to earth a bit. They've had to share some 5-stars with places like Clemson and Georgia. And, it's showing on the field. They're just not quite where they used to be. On to Auburn. That was another team I like to analyze. So I guess we kind of got what we expected. Gus Malzahn doing exactly enough to save his job and nothing more. It kind of, yeah. I mean, what's new? He hired Chad Morris, and I think that's actually a great hire because watching Arkansas film, the play designs are great. Like players get open and it's clever kind of patterns and stuff in the passing game, and the Rakeem Boyd works really well in the run game. So I think Chad Morris is actually a pretty legit offensive coordinator. He didn't work out as a head coach. Like whatever. But I think it's just some of his players just weren't good enough to pull it off. I mean, he had like 6 QBs in like 2 years. I mean, the quarterbacks just couldn't get it done. Bo Nix is better than all of those guys. The receivers will be better than all of those guys. Rakeem Boyd's probably, if he was on Auburn, he'd probably be the best running back. But yeah, I think Chad Morris is actually a pretty good hire as an OC. I think if you just let him, maybe he's not great working with a program, but if he's just like calling plays and designing plays and stuff, I think that's pretty good for like better talented athletes like they have at Auburn to better talented athletes that have at Auburn to actually pull off those plays. As for the defense, like I don't know. They lose Marlon Davidson and Derek Brown, who are two huge losses. Nick Coe and Noah Igbenogany as well. Um, and I think that's going to be. I don't think they'll be as good of a defense this year. I think Noah Igbenogany should have stayed because I reckon he could have played himself into the first round if he stayed for another year because I believe he left as a junior, right? Um, and I think, yeah, if he stayed another year, that would have benefited him. But, yeah, Auburn still has some talent there. Big Cat Bryant, TD Moultrie or whatever. Of course, Owen Papo and that. Like, they'll still be a good team. And is it Kevin Steele, the name of the defensive coordinator who just got the new contract? Like, he knows what he's doing. He's a good coordinator. But I think they'll make up for the loss of defensive production with increased offensive production. I'm just going to take a break for like 1 minute. My computer's overheating. So if you're watching this on delayed or whatever, just skip like a minute. I'll be back. All right, how about very unprofessional? So back to Auburn. I think the loss of defensive production will be made up for with increased offensive production. I think guys like Seth Williams are so good, and Bo Nix in his second year, he was kind of thrown in the deep end. He was playing Oregon, literally his first ever start. Played teams like Alabama and LSU and Georgia, and that all as a true freshman. So I think in his sophomore year, he'll take a big jump, and I could have him as an early Heisman kind of guy. As long as their offensive line is okay and holds up, they're losing a lot of starters, but starters that a lot of them weren't that good. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's hard to say. That's something that I actually want to watch spring games for, is to see how that Auburn offense looks under Chad Morris and whether it's not more of the same from Kirby, not Kirby Smart, from Gus Malzahn. Like, I don't know, is he going to like kind of hog it again, and it's just going to be more of the same because it's just working less and less each year at the rate they're going, and they really do need to kind of revamp it a little bit and get a bit more creative and a bit less predictable. And speaking of Kirby Smart, going on to Georgia now. Geez, I mean, I'm a Georgia fan, full disclosure. I try to be unbiased on this show, but oh man, like, the defense was amazing, and the thing I really liked about the defense was the fact that there was no Roquan Smith or DeAndre Baker or some like Leonard Floyd or some real stud like that, but it was just a bunch of guys that all played really well together as a team, and it was just like 11, well, no, more than 11 because they rotated so much, but it was just so many really solid contributors across the board. And so I think next year, as guys like Nolan Smith and Trayvon Walker and that really step up. I think Eric Stokes is in for a big year. LeCount is in for a big year. I think as they kind of play themselves into, looking like first-round players, Georgia's defense is going to be fantastic. But it ultimately counts for nothing when your offense literally can't do anything. It was painful. I think Todd Monken was a fantastic hire. We just need to get the ball in the air. We have receivers. Like, I know our receiving corps is very young, but it is so much more highly rated than what guys a couple of years ago were rated. I mean, Pickens and Blaylock, I mean, that's 2 4/5 star, 2 at least top 50 players right there. And then you got like Jermaine Burton and Arian Smith and Marcus Rosemary and those guys coming in who if at least one of them can have the same kind of season that George Pickens has, I think George's offense is going to be good. Lost a lot of guys on the offensive line. I think 4 out of 5 starters are gone now. Cade Mays has decided to transfer, which I'm bummed about. Cade Mays was like one of my favorite players. He was so aggressive, and he's actually fun to watch. If you just watched him, he could just like bully people on the line, and it's such a bummer, but it's such a big gain for Tennessee to get someone like him. But I don't know. Georgia's recruited so well offensive line. I think we're going to have to start one of the freshmen like Broderick Jones or Tate Ratledge, which isn't preferable. Let's see how this Clay Webb thing works out. But they'll put together a perfectly good offensive line. They've recruited so well there. I don't think it's going to be a problem. And just getting the ball in the air. Jamie Newman's transfer from Wake Forest, I think he's obviously the guy. And if we run a lot of options and then just some deeper passing patterns, I think that'll be great because it'll free up space for Zamir White. And the thing I love about option plays is it just takes a player out of the play. So it's not 11 on 11, it's 11 on 10, really, if you're doing an option. And I don't know. I don't think they'd go as far as to do triple options, but at least just constant read options. And that can really bring guys like James Cook into the equation, fast pass catching backs and just kind of scat backs. I want to see James Cook used to his full potential because he's exciting when he's on the field and like he's light, he's small, so he struggles a bit between the tackles. But when you get that kind of pace and you can kind of throw and you kind of run, you're keeping the defense in two minds, that's when a guy like James Cook can be really handy. And that's why, last year Georgia's offense, DeAndre Swift was great, but he didn't make so many kind of, fantastic flash plays because most of the time the defense knew it was just going to be like a standard kind of handoff and he'd run between the tackles or kind of on an angle outside the tackles and that would kind of be it. There was nothing really all that creative. And he couldn't carry all the load by himself. Brian Herrien was okay. He's just fine. I don't think he was even as good as Holyfield. And then, Zeus was kind of banged up a bit. He was obviously they were kind of easing him back. And then McIntosh was a bit young as well. And Cook, we just spoke about him. So I think if this Georgia offense really clicks, we're in for a big year. Very big year, like national championship big year. And I know it's been a very long time. And Georgia kind of gets quite a lot of slack about that. But really, if with a defense that good, if the offense clicks, you can be unstoppable. Who else? Florida. So Florida had a good year. And I was kind of down on Florida. And I think that was because I assumed Felipe Franks would be their starting QB. And he was trash, like I said. Felipe Franks is just not a good player. And like you saw that in the Miami game, you almost lost them the game. I said Miami would cover the spread, and they did. And then Kentucky, I was kind of like, I think Kentucky could beat Florida. And until Franks came off, Kentucky was looking like they would. And then Trask came, and oh, look, this guy's way better. Trask was a smart player. Like Franks had the talent, but it was just he just made some really boneheaded decisions. Level-headed plays and things like that just weren't there. And Trask could do those kinds of things. Like there's talk of Emory Jones and stuff. I think they'll use him a bit like they did last year. Maybe a bit of goal line or some first down situations just to keep the defense in two minds or whatever. But no, I think Florida is a good team. But when I look at their schedule, like playing Georgia and LSU, even Tennessee is going to be good again. I think I'll get to them next, but I don't know. I think Florida's ceiling at the moment is pretty much what they've hit the last 2 years, like 10 wins. I just don't think they're good enough to go that extra step. And that's where recruiting's really going to have to come in. Like I know they finally got a 5-star, but you got Brendan Cox from Georgia, and then you got this new defensive tackle 5-star. Like, okay, it's good. You finally got one. But like I said, you need those really elite guys that are going to win you games. And I think Florida is a better quarterback away. Trask is good, and like a lot of people saying he's the best returning quarterback in the SEC. But honestly, I think that most years he wouldn't be. I mean, if this was last year, he would be like the 5th or 6th best guy returning. And I think we've kind of already seen his ceiling. So I don't know, the wide receivers and guys like Kyle Pitts are playing to a 5-star level. I think CJ Henderson's left, so that's a bit of a bummer. But yeah, no, Florida, I think they're a 10-win team at the moment, and I don't really see that changing until their recruiting picks up. Mullen is obviously a good coach, but I don't know, 10 wins, if that's what you're happy with, that's where you're going to be for a while, I think. Tennessee, now, like, that was like the tale of two seasons. They started as an absolute joke. I mean, we all know what happened first game and then the second game, and then they were good against, like, Chattanooga or whatever. Um, and then got handed to them by Florida. By the time they played Georgia, you saw a bit of improvement. They looked a little better. And then they played Alabama really hard as well. And the final score definitely didn't reflect that game. I mean, if Garantano didn't make that stupid audible on the goal line or whatever, and they had actually scored from that, who knows what could have happened? I don't think they would have won. But yeah, no, they were great down the stretch. They won like 6 in a row or something, and I think they'll carry that confidence into next year. I think Jeremy Pruitt kind of worked it out, and their team is just better than it was before. They have more names. Like I said, they have Cade Mays now. They got that Harrison Bailey kid, who I think will challenge for a starting role. Brian Mowell was good. I don't think Garantano is Garantano still on the team. I don't even know. But yeah, no, I think, and their offensive line went from weak last year, and now it's going to be a very strong point in their offense. They got Trey Smith and Cade Mays, and then they got their 2 5-star sophomores. Like, that's a solid line, and there'll be one other guy. I don't know who'll start there. I don't know the program that well. And they lose guys like Batuli. That's a bit of a shame. But Toa Toa and Quavarius Couch, I think that's how you say his name. They'll be great contributors, and I think Tennessee will only continue to get better. They've recruited all right as well, so I think Tennessee. I don't know if they'll be able to break through just yet, but they'll challenge some teams and they'll get some wins that they probably wouldn't have gotten last year. Losing guys like Juwan Jennings is a shame. I think he was the most underrated wide receiver in possibly in all of college football, at least in the SEC. He was a fantastic player, Juwan Jennings. He felt like he was there for like 100 years. Like Butch Jones seems so long ago. Yeah, I don't know. Juwan Jennings, he'll be missed, but they'll replace him. They'll have guys. Tennessee is, I think, still a year away. But if they play like they did down the stretch, some old school defense, discipline gaps, stop the run, which is what they kind of did pretty well, then I think that's gonna lead them to a fairly promising season in the SEC. I don't think they're going to be like a right up there. I'll have to look at their schedule as we get closer to the season so I can analyze it properly. But yeah, that's where I see Tennessee for now. Who else can we talk about? Ohio State. Okay, they outperformed what I thought. No, Ohio State was great. I thought they wouldn't. I didn't think Ryan Day would be that good of a coach. I'm happy to admit, flat out wrong. I thought Urban Meyer leaving, Justin Fields, he's still pretty unproven, even though he's highly rated. But no, Ryan Day must be a good coach. There you go. What is he like? 16-1 as a head coach at Ohio State, something like that. Only lost to Clemson by 6 points, and they could have easily won that game if Fields and his receiver were on the same page at the end of the game. There was just like a kind of miscommunication between the two of them. Will they be as good next year? I'm going to go out and risk having egg on my face again and say no. If you look at like the 4 real stars of that team were Fields, J.K. Dobbins, Jeffrey Okudah, and Chase Young. They lose 3 out of those 4. And Fields being in the most important position, like, okay, he's back. But a pass rusher and like a lockdown corner, you're losing, top 5, top 10 draft pick caliber players at those 2 positions, the 2 most important positions on the defense. That's pretty hard to replace. And Ohio State recruits very well. I think their passing attack would be better this year. Some of those receivers whose name escapes me right now, they looked fantastic, and I think they'll be really good in like sophomore years. But losing those 2 in defense, I can't imagine how they're going to be just as good. I really can't. They'll have guys, but to play to Young and Okudah standards, I don't know if that's going to happen. They also go to Oregon in like week 2, and they're playing at Oregon. Now, if Oregon still had Herbert, I'd be saying Oregon, here we go. Like this could be a big game. This could be Oregon actually pulls the upset here. But I don't know without Herbert, I don't know who their starting QB is going to be. I'm not big into that program, so I don't know too much about it. But if whoever the quarterback is plays to a reasonable level, and guys like Thibodeau was so good last year, they're going to have Noah Sewell and who's the other dude they got? The other 5-star name escapes me at the moment. Let's look that up. But their front seven, I mean, they're built like an SEC team, as everyone's saying. Mario Cristobal or Justin Flo, yeah, that's it. So they got like 2 5-star linebackers. They got a 5-star pass rusher. Like they're going to be legit, and those guys will start right away, no doubt. Oregon could be very legit this year, and if they beat Ohio State, they got them at home, which is huge. I'm not going to make a call on that game just now because it's way too early. I'd just rather speculate and get the ball rolling on the off-season talks. Let's go to recruiting, and it's kind of more of the same, really. It's good to see some schools like South Carolina and Washington and, like I said, Oregon and stuff kind of get up right up there in the kind of 5-star ranks. Like Florida's got one now, but it's mostly more of the same. Georgia, Clemson, Alabama. Texas A&M is recruiting somewhat well, and we got to see it come together for them this year. Last year was disappointing. I think Kellen Mond was pretty average, but so the offensive line was horrendous. Offensive line was horrendous. I don't know what you can do about that. They're going to have names this year. 52, what was his name? Justin, started with an M, sorry. He's leaving, and he was really the only name on that team. They had some good receivers who played above their weight and everything, but ultimately guys like Jalen Jones, I think, is their new 5-star safety. Damon Damas, Haynes King, like these guys. And they had some DeMarvin Leal, if that's how you say it. I don't know if I'm butchering these names or not. But they got some guys who were recruited very highly and need to play up to that level because they're going to be a well-coached team if they've got Jimbo Fisher at the helm. But ultimately, if you haven't got the cattle, then you can't get it done. And Texas A&M over the last couple of years really hasn't had too many names. It's just seemed like, a bunch of randos out there. That's all I can really say about them. If they have players that will step up into different roles and kind of do their job exceptionally well, they could all of a sudden be a dominant team because they were inconsistent, but they have potential. Like the team should be good with the amount of money they have and the facilities, and now the level they're recruiting and the head coach they got. They really have no excuse. I think they're probably still a year away. I think Mond might get the Jake Bentley treatment where he starts the year as a starter, but ultimately they put the freshman in towards the end. I don't know, Jake Bentley got injured, but unless A&M's really making a run for it, I don't think Mond is going to be the starting QB by the end of the year. Just because what's the upside of playing a senior like that when you have a freshman like Haynes King, who's obviously your future, and Mond kind of just looks like an 8-win ceiling guy, and he just hasn't seemed to make the leap. I'm not writing him off, but if he plays like he did last year, I don't know. I think it'll be more of the same for A&M, which is a program I want to see do well. But if I'm being honest, that's kind of just how I see it. No, I think they're still a year away. Quite a few SEC teams are still a year away. Like them, I think Auburn as well, honestly. Auburn, when they've got Bo Nix as a junior, when they've got Papo as a junior, when they got a few more guys, just give them a bit more experience on both the defense and the offense. I guess Seth Williams might be gone next year. Auburn's still a year away, I think. Florida might be a year away. It could be, I'm not going to say it's going to be a rebuilding year for the SEC, but a lot of teams might not be quite as good because LSU's obviously got to rebuild. I don't think they'll quite reload. They'll still be great, but I think it'll be LSU teams of the past where they're kind of good but not amazing. I think they'll be back to that level. It just kind of really came together for LSU this year. and that, yeah, they put together the kind of a dream season. So I'll get to teams like Clemson and stuff next time, but I'll leave it at that for today because we're so early out from the season, and like there's not too much more I can say. I'll be trying to do more of these live streams. I'll live stream just because my computer has pretty much no memory left. So I'll make it a bit more organized and have my show notes and everything so I can be a bit more professional next time. But this was just kind of testing the waters. Yeah, so let me know what you think. These are just opinions. And if I got any facts wrong or whatever, like I was doing this all on the go. So I was bound to screw something up. But till next time, thanks for watching.